Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we cover any activities or anything that may be of interest to librarians across the state. We have Commission staff that do presentations, and we have guest speakers, which we have, well, sort of a mixture of here.
Yes, sort of a mixture.
We're just here to help out.
And Kim's sort of an alumni.
This is true,
yes.
Former
Library Commission alumni.
We do these sessions every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time live, but they are all recorded as this one is being, so if you're unable to watch one of our live sessions on Wednesday mornings, we have now actually, at the end of this month, we'll have 3 years worth, a full 3 years worth of NCompass live sessions out there that you can watch. So take a look at them. We do all sorts of things. We do interviews, book reviews, people just come in and do their own presentations, tech talk type things, technology, anything vaguely library related, we'll put it on the show.
Perfect.
And today we have, as we were just saying, my screen will light up here, Kit Keller, who is used to work here at the Library Commission, and has moved on, and is going to talk to us about job hunting, how to do job hunting now. The way things have changed. And I will just hand over to you to introduce your thing, and you can go
Okay.
and take it away.
Let me just ask you if you would introduce yourself a little bit. I'm Mary Jo Ryan. I'm with the Nebraska Library Commission, and you are working now with Kaplan University.
Yes.
You're an academic librarian now.
Yes, I work with Kaplan, and I will go to this next slide. I worked at the Library Commission for 15 years in a variety of positions. I have always worked as a librarian. I think I was born a librarian, but I do catalog my spices at home, which is just frightening.
It is frightening.
my very first job when I was, growing up on Long Island, I worked at the public library in the town where I grew up, and I'm been in every kind of library, special, academic, public libraries, and I love them all. I also work, as you can see here, I teach online. I started teaching online in 2002. I now teach for North Central online, for Argosy University online. I have several courses through the LEAD program at University of North Texas, and I do some consulting work. Years ago, Google had an online research tool where you could put up a question, put a price on it, and I used to do that Google Answer service, and it was kind of fun. I saved my last check I ever received from Google because I didn't want to cash it. I thought, oh, it's over. I'm just going to save my check.
So must have been a big one, huh?
Oh, yeah, it was a fabulous check, yeah. Didn't need to be cashed. Didn't miss it. So that's a little bit about me, and let's talk about what we're here to learn about, job hunting in the 21st century. It is a very tough time to be looking for a job. The unemployment rate has doubled since the recession began. I think we all are well aware of the protest and the sit-ins and the sing-ins and everything in the Occupy Wall Street area, and people are desperate. They're desperately looking for jobs. It's a very tough time, and 59% of parents provide or recently provided financial assistance to children aged 18 to 39. And these are not children who are students, but I have 4 children, and I know how long it took some of my kids to find jobs and how hard it is to find a good job that pays well with benefits. Americans 25 and under face one of the toughest job markets in modern history. It's tough.
And a lot of those people are coming into our libraries.
Exactly. That's a perfect segue into my perfect. And this is based on, I think this is based on an ALA study that 91% of public libraries provide access to job databases and other job opportunity resources in their libraries. This, like with so many things, when people need information and they don't have a lot of financial resources, they have time but they don't have money, they are going to go to their public library. So this is where you come in. This is where your job starts. And as I learned when I was in the job hunting mode, these old techniques do not work anymore. Years ago, I would go by the Omaha newspaper and look in their classified ads thinking I was opening up my world in terms of job searching. It's, as I discovered when I lost my job, it is a very different world out there. Not that I suppose you might. I don't even know if anybody puts job ads in the paper. I'd be surprised, but these techniques of sending letters, knocking on doors, looking things up, even I would dare say using Monster, which was popular for a while. Those things have all changed. 1 in 6 workers use social media to get hired. I think the most amazing thing is that 18.4 million Americans say that Facebook got them their current job. And I find that amazing because it's Facebook, but as far as the others, LinkedIn, 8 million people say that LinkedIn found them their job, and that I can second. I'm one of them. It got me a job. It got me more than one job. So I quickly learned that the world of job hunting had dramatically changed. So what do you need to know? And where do you start? These are the 3 tools I'll talk about mostly, primarily LinkedIn, but all 3 of these are very important, and I found a use for every one of them. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised because Twitter at first I did not get. I thought, oh yeah, it's hard. Who cares? It's very hard to get at first. People would say, and actually when it started out, I think it was used differently. People were just tweeting, I'm making a sandwich, you know.
People have figured out how.
I'm going to Starbucks now.
Yeah,
that's
people have
fabulous.
figured out how to actually benefit from it now.
Yes. Years ago, I would say when I was looking for work, I would subscribe to listservs. I don't know that listservs still work. I guess they're still out there.
They're still out there, yeah.
ALA hosts a lot. And Library Commission.
We still have ours,
has some listservs. But for me, I didn't quite get Twitter until, you know how it is, when the need becomes personal, all of a sudden you're motivated to learn, and that's kind of what worked for me. So what do these major companies have in common? All of these companies and many, many others use LinkedIn to recruit candidates for employment, which kind of surprised me, but they do. I thought perhaps it was more only in the professional area, but no. Everybody looks on LinkedIn. When if you apply for a job, you want to make sure you have a really nice-looking LinkedIn profile. Now, LinkedIn does tend to aim more for people with more education. This graph shows that 38% of the people using LinkedIn have a graduate school degree. So but it is used across the board. I tell my own kids who are in their 20s and 30s that, you know, they feel like, oh, I'm not there yet, you know, it doesn't matter for me. Absolutely it does matter. You get a LinkedIn profile and you start nurturing it because it's something you have to learn how to do. And like so many things, first impressions do matter. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times, this is mostly with students I have, I'll get their email address, and it'll be something like lizziesmom@hotmail.com. And I just want to say, you know, you might want to lose that email. That really, really does not come across looking. It looks just like, sounds like that rusty mailbox. It's just not, it's not current, it's not professional. Mm-hmm. And in putting together this PowerPoint, I came across this page, at the picture on the bottom of this nice young woman and her husband, boyfriend, significant other. And this is her LinkedIn page. Now, it's a great photo. It's a lovely photo, but it's not a LinkedIn professional.
Yeah. I'm talking headshots.
You want a headshot. You want something that makes you look like you are ready to go to work.
And it doesn't have to be something like, oh gosh, I have to go get somebody to take a picture of me. I actually have one that I use in a lot of my things that you may see up there. You've seen one all over the place. It just happened to be a good shot. It was a candid shot that someone got of me. Yes. And it actually looked good, and I was like, hey, I can use that. And so I cropped it and used it.
And use it over and over.
Yes, use it over and over. And I didn't have to say, can you take some pictures? I'm going to have to go and pose somewhere. I just found one that someone else had taken of me, and it worked.
Well, you're right, and sometimes those are the best because you do look relaxed.
Yes.
And if you're wearing the right clothes and you look professional, that's the shot you want. And, again, use it over and over. That's your brand. You want people to start to recognize you and your name and your face and all those things.
That's so important because people think they have to change their photographs all the time, but they don't realize that you're trying to get people to recognize it. So use it until you can't stand to look at it anymore,
exactly.
And then keep using it anyway.
Well, you know, really, what's the point? I have one good picture, and so on the schools where I teach, they like you to upload a photo so your students, I don't know why, they know what you look like. With my name, a lot of people think I'm a guy. So they, they look at my photo, oh, Kit, it's a woman. So for whatever reason, they like you to have a picture up there. And every place where I put a photo, I use the same photo, and I don't care if I like it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people comment on Twitter, which relates to all these, that a lot of time if you pay attention to following Twitter, you get the little icon for every single person, and that's what you start identifying with that picture or whatever graphic, whatever they've used, whether it is a photo of themselves, their library's logo, a graphic of some sort, whatever it is, and people complain when someone changes it.
Yes.
They're like, oh, so-and-so, I didn't realize that was you talking because I didn't recognize your picture because you changed it. Stop doing that.
I know, it's really,
they get used to identifying graphically who you are to the person and don't even read the name anymore.
No, your name is not nearly as important. It's like if Target all of a sudden stopped using that Target, and you drove by, you think, oh my God, it's a new store there. Don't be changing it every week. It's not, this isn't your playground. This is your professional presence. So once you've done that, you've got a good email, you've got a professional photo up, and you've created your LinkedIn page, then you do some strategic looking around. You want to find groups to join, you want to find companies to follow, and be very careful about what you post. I mean, I see some people post, oh, it's raining this morning, I got a cup of coffee. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure why you think that is going to enhance your professional presence, but some people, mostly if I post on LinkedIn, it is a link to an article that I think is related to something people will want to know from a reliable source, or it is an observation of my own. Because write everything on there as though it is part of a job interview. Let me tell you, it is. It is. It turned out that way for me, and I've seen it at work. So
and this is something librarians can definitely help their customers with.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Their customers do not know this.
No, you need to show them the importance. Use data. I've included all my references at the end of this presentation. Show them the data. Show them how to do it. Do it yourself. All of those things are important.
And now, Kit, you wouldn't care if some librarians decided they wanted to use some of your slides as part of a little presentation to job hunters?
Absolutely not.
They could just pull slides from this slideshow?
They can use anything they want.
Yeah. This slideshow and any of the URLs and links and articles that she's mentioning will be posted along with the recording when we put it up, just like we do every week. So the slides will be on SlideShare and will be downloadable, so you can download and use them.
Yeah.
All the links will be on our Delicious account, and so you'll be able to click on them in there and find them.
Perfect.
And they're there forever.
Well, and none of the, I mean, none of this is,
we're here.
as long as we're here, as long as SlideShare is up. But, yeah, none of it's locked. It's all, you take the slide, change the dates, whatever. Do whatever you want with it. That's fine. I'll tell you, this slide will just describe what happened when I lost my job. I had taken a job with an online startup university. And it was kind of a leap of faith. And I'm not sorry I did it. I've learned a lot, and my life has changed a lot as a result. So after 15 years at the Library Commission, I took this job, and I was working from home for this startup university. Unfortunately, their startup coincided with a big economic recession. So they were sailing along for a couple of years and could not sustain their investors. Their investors were dropping like flies. So in April, I got laid off. They shut down. They went out of business. They had started up one university, which they sold, and we were working on something else, and then they just shut down. So, I was in shock. I hadn't actively looked for a job for a very long time because I'd been employed for a long time. So I went to LinkedIn and immediately updated my status. And by doing this, all I did was indicate that the job I had that was showing us up as my most recent job now had an end date. It ended in April. I put the end date. And within 24 hours, I kid you not, I had a message through LinkedIn, which is called an in-mail message. I got an in-mail message from someone who knew me from a previous job years ago teaching online. And she asked if I was interested in an online library job, just like that. Wow. And I thought, I was stunned. And I at first could not remember where I'd met her. Where do I know this person from? It occurred to me she had been she'd been part of an interview I'd had years ago, and then by the time I was hired for the place, she was no longer working with them. So I didn't really remember who she was.
But you should look her up on LinkedIn.
I looked her up on LinkedIn. I saw her associations and where our paths crossed, and that's all I needed to know. Well, one thing led to another. We had, online phone calls. She introduced me online to the president of this place and flew me to Cleveland for an interview. And by September 1, I was working again. So I was, after that, I was a firm believer in paying attention to LinkedIn. In fact, I took a free online webinar offered by a woman named Irene Kohler. She has a service called Savvy. I think she calls it Savvy. Anyway, she gave a free webinar, and I learned just a little bit more than I'd known, and I was off and running. I was out there just nurturing my LinkedIn profile. It was a great learning experience. I very carefully looked for groups, not so much job hunting groups, but groups that would identify colleagues who are librarians in online settings, who work in for-profit institutions, which is where I was working at the time, as well as the traditional ALA groups, companies I might want to follow who might be looking for someone with my services, consulting, anything that just might be an opening. So I joined those groups. Most groups are open, but some groups are closed. I've never been turned down when I asked to join a group, because what happens is you put in a request that you would like to join this group. Someone will review what you have on LinkedIn, what your profile reveals, and if it appears that it's appropriate for you and your interests match, you'll just get an email saying, welcome to the group.
So I noticed you didn't circle jobs. Those are job listings, but you didn't circle that.
Well, I will. I'll talk about that,
okay.
Because that's another thing. If you look at your LinkedIn page, there's all these things across the top that I never used to pay attention to.
Yes.
You know, I go to LinkedIn and I look and think, I mean, I used to go to LinkedIn maybe once every 3 months, if that. I would hardly ever look at the page. No, you want to look at it just like you do Facebook. You want to look at it all the time.
It sends me emails periodically.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a weekly thing. I'm sure you can probably adjust this, of changes to your friends or whoever
Yes.
you're connected to
Yes.
on LinkedIn. So it keeps reminding me, don't forget it's out there, and other people are changing their info.
Yes.
And I always think, maybe I should go make sure my stuff's up to date.
It's a good reminder.
There's something I could add that I'm doing now
It's a
that
good
I wasn't
reminder.
on there before. So, yeah.
And you can change those settings. You can go in
how often
and
it comes.
decide how often it comes, if you want them or not, all of those things. And what I found is the more active I became in paying attention, posting, responding, the more visible I became to other people. It's quite amazing. If you're in a group and somebody posts a question, give it some thought. This is what I do. If it's something I really feel I know something about, I do some research. I go to Word, I write a response, I check it in spelling, I check the grammar, I check all my links, and then I post it. And everybody in your group is going to see that you posted that. And they will, after a while, you will begin to have some prominence in the group. And that snowballs as well, because then you'll be recognized by LinkedIn. It's quite valuable.
So what the librarians who are helping job hunters might do is suggest that they make an appointment just every Tuesday and Thursday at a certain time, come into the library public computer center, plan to spend some time doing that kind of thing.
Yes.
And that they have like a list of things they do when they come in. I think that would be really helpful to help a job hunter have some structure.
Absolutely. And if you are, and many libraries have a job help center, particularly in this economy, it's grown more and more. The workforce development programs, all of those things help people. The Smart Investing program, which I work a little with ALA, a lot of those libraries who have Smart Investing grants work with people seeking jobs, because you can't invest if you don't have any money. And so if you don't have a job, you don't have any money. So it's a domino effect. So definitely your role can be you can even set aside sessions when you'll be there as a mentor or a reference to help people who come in to work on LinkedIn, to very selectively identify groups, to very carefully craft some messages they want to post. And if you go frequently to your LinkedIn page, you'll see that LinkedIn will put up names of people you might know. You might know this person. A lot of times I'm thinking, no, I have no idea who they are. Sometimes someone will pop up who I do have a connection with, and I'll add them I send them a message, say, let's connect. The only time I have not connected with somebody is if it's a student. I don't connect with people I currently am teaching, but afterwards, yes, that's fine. And if you look at that the slide on the right, you'll see that your connections, of course, it's just like a web. It connects. My connections are exponentially grown by the people who those people are connected with. So I might not know someone at the place where I'm applying for a job, but I might have an intermediary who does. So that is very, very valuable. The other thing that LinkedIn will do routinely is send you these little lists of jobs you might be interested in, adjunct faculty. These are all things that are related to your particular expertise and job experience as you've posted it on your website. So this is something you can help your patrons do when they come into the library. Tell them to be very careful about what they put up. It shouldn't be casual. This is just as though you were filling out a job application. It's very important to do it in a very professional, grown-up way that is not casual and is not it's not just friendly, it's professional. Now this, who viewed my profile, I think is one of the most valuable tools.
Isn't that interesting?
I love this one.
I am always surprised by some of these people who've looked at mine. I'm like, why? That person?
Why?
I can't even see what they have to do with libraries, but hey, you never know.
You never know. But, and here's something I do know. I have, on occasion, applied for a job, whether it's adjunct, consulting, or whatever, and maybe 7 days later, somebody in that organization has viewed my profile. Mm-hmm. That's a tip-off to me that it got their attention. It might be a good time to follow up with an email saying, I applied for this position. I'm curious to know what the status is. You know, if someone is looking at your name, that can be a great indicator. So I always look at that, and I recommend.
So this is your boss at Kaplan looked at your profile.
Yes. And you know what? It occurred to me. I thought I had been working there several months and had not updated my status to show that that was my current job. Oh. And I thought, I wonder if that's why he's looking at it. It could well be.
I better fix that.
So I need to fix that. And it was just really, I meant to do it. I kept saying, I mean to do it, I mean to do it. And I was just not doing it. So when I saw he's looking at it, I thought, I think maybe I was connected to him. I was connected to other people at Kaplan. I thought, okay, now's the time. Carve out a few minutes. And one thing I learned, I recently took a little tips and trick session with LinkedIn staff. And one reason I hesitate to do that is because if you ever have gone in and tried to reorder your jobs or any information in there, it immediately sends out messages to everybody. And sometimes it's not even a new job, and everyone starts sending you congratulations. And you feel kind of like a jerk. So, but I learned in this little LinkedIn session.
It makes it look like something changed.
Yes, when really it hasn't. It goes all these messages, and I'm thinking 300 people are going to get a message that I just sort of tweaked something. But you can go in and change your settings temporarily so no updates are sent. Oh. You can do that in your settings page. And so after I read, I did a session with LinkedIn staff, and I learned that, and I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. Because I have been here a few months, it's going to look really weird if everybody, including my boss, gets a message that I'm currently hired as a librarian. So, yeah, I went in, I turned off my notifications temporarily.
They call them notifications or
yes,
updates?
I think it's notifications. It's in your settings, and it's worth exploring all of those parts of LinkedIn and go in and if anybody's interested, I typed up my notes from this LinkedIn session to send primarily to my kids who've asked for help with LinkedIn. So I'd be willing to share those with anybody. So here's what happens with LinkedIn. There's me, and there's a colleague, and there's a potential employer. And this happens all the time. I was interested in a job somewhere, it was an adjunct position, and I didn't have any direct contacts through LinkedIn, but when I looked at my connectors with other people, I have found an intermediary who could put me in touch with someone who currently worked at that location. And this is what worked for my position at Argosy. Argosy is part of a huge online teaching conglomerate that includes several universities, and they're growing, growing, growing. I really wanted to be teaching there. So I got in touch with the person with whom I had a direct connection and asked them to put me in touch with their colleague who was currently employed there. And that's all it took. Within less than an hour, I had an email from that person connecting us on LinkedIn, and they said, any questions? Let me know. So it's turned out to be a very, very valuable tool to spend a little bit of time learning about. And because I became so active on LinkedIn, I eventually got an email from LinkedIn asking if I would like to join. They have an organization called Friends of LinkedIn. And the nice thing about this is you do get invited to sessions that teach you about the service. And you see this little one down here, this free session on LinkedIn tips and tricks. It's a half-hour phone call, and I learned a bunch from this. It's free. And in fact, I did find out afterwards that they were okay if I shared it with other people. I didn't know that at first because it was only sent to people who were members of Friends of LinkedIn. But by becoming more visible, you get their attention and you get the attention of your colleagues. I had a question on one of my groups that I responded to probably 2 months ago, and my name still comes up when someone else posts and they'll say, I agree with Kit Keller. I do my online teaching in this style. And so your name just will pop up over and over. It's better than any advertising you can pay for.
Too true.
So that was LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my favorite tool for a lot of reasons. But then I also, when I was laid off, I wasn't sure how to stay in touch with all the jobs that got posted online. I mean, I'd used over the years RSS feeds, and I found that a little cumbersome. You had to keep going and looking at your RSS feed. And I was also on listservs. ALA has a great listserv. Library Gig has a listserv that would come out once a week. But you know, when you've lost your job, you don't want to wait once a week. You want a job listing every hour. So I finally broke down and learned a little bit about using Twitter. I didn't quite get it when it first started. And I joined, but I didn't really know what to do with it. So I began to learn a little bit about how to use Twitter in a job hunt. And it's a great tool. And it's very easy to do. Number one, find those organizations who have Twitter feeds, who post to Twitter constantly. And I tell you, all the big organizations do. These are the ones that I found. I found the LibGig. That way, they have a listserv that comes out once a week. But by following them on Twitter, I got the jobs as they were posted. I didn't have to wait. And that way, I could be in there with a resume before their listserv even came out to other people. And it's constant. The feed comes up over and over and over. I don't do a lot of posting or tweeting on Twitter, but I do read these job ads. Sometimes I do, because it's the same thing. If you become a presence on Twitter, you will get more requests. People want to follow you. Again, you have to be professional. You can't be, I'm going to lunch with my best friend. It needs to be, especially when you look and see who's following you, it should be job profession related. Now, if you're in the library and you have jobs in your library, put them on Twitter. Does your library have a Twitter feed? Those are things you can help your local community with. But I found higher ed jobs, because a lot of the adjunct jobs are posted there, jobs and higher ed. I just did a keyword search for online teaching, adjunct, library, research, whatever words. That's how I found these groups to follow.
So we would say to a customer, okay, what are your interests?
Yes.
Do keyword searches on your interests and follow groups that fit those keyword searches.
Right.
They'll probably find 3 or 4.
They will find 3. You'll be surprised. And if your local community has a Target, you have a Walmart, they have job listings. They have a job Twitter feed. So even though it might seem like we're not big enough, whatever, look for something related to your local economy, your high school, your city. Does your city post their jobs? I mean, the thing is, it's fast. It's faster than me going to the Lincoln's the county page and looking up Lincoln jobs or looking up jobs in Lancaster County. All of that stuff takes time. And yes, when you're laid off, you have a lot of time, but it's much more efficient.
You still want to be efficient with your searching.
It's much more efficient, and you want to be one of the first ones who sees the job, because you know what this does? It gives you time to find a contact. It gives you time to go back to LinkedIn and say, okay, who do I have in my network who could be the inside voice for me? Because I'm telling you, in this job economy, you have to have an inside track somehow, whatever it takes to make your name rise above the gazillion others that are going to be in there. So yes, tweet, once again, judiciously, strategically. Everything I will post sometimes things about a service. When I was looking for information for a course I was developing, I had the best customer service from Lincoln City Library's Interlibrary Loan. They got me every obscure book I wanted, and just when I needed it. So I tweeted something about the fabulous service from my local city library's Interlibrary Loan, and they noticed that. Believe me, the word will spread. By the same token, if you have a bad customer service experience with somebody.
It will get out there as well.
Well, I know someone who was trying to register for the ALA conference and get a hotel room the day the registration opened. Couldn't do it. The thing wasn't working. The page wasn't advancing. It took one slight mention, in this case on Facebook, and he had a phone call from the organization who was making those reservations and had a reservation within an hour. So it's a very powerful tool to use, that online presence. And I mean, you don't want to rant and rave. That's not productive. You don't look good. Nobody looks good. But you want to say, I'm a little frustrated. I can't seem to register for this conference, which I know will be great and I really want to go to. So use those tools to your advantage. Now, this is a relatively new tool, and I've not explored it a lot.
Yeah, I heard about this one.
Yeah, it's in beta for Twitter. It's twit.jobsearch. So, and they show, obviously, jobs if you're looking for something in Kazakhstan or something, maybe it will work for you. But you can, obviously, from the map, it shows that you can zero in on a particular part of the world and explore job searches from that perspective, from location perspective. For me, I'm teaching a class now where some of my students are in Australia. I don't feel tied to a particular location, so I don't generally use a map kind of search. But this is something else to explore, and who knows, these tools change dramatically over time, so this might be something to pay attention to. I just figure I'm going to start tracking it. One way I do that, and this is a different class, but one way I do that is I'll set up an alert. I'll go to Google and I'll set up an alert on a particular tool, topic, company, or whatever, and decide I want a weekly update on anywhere that particular item shows up in the news, on a blog, on a web page, whatever. So not only does it keep me up to date, but it reminds me to, because there's so many things you want to pay attention to, it will remind me to go back and look at that tool and see how it's working. So the Google alerts are great for that. And yes, I do live in front of a computer. It's probably beginning to sound like that. Now, the other tool that, of course, I think probably more people are familiar with is Facebook. And I'm not a big proponent of Facebook as a job hunting tool, but people are using it, and your job, people who are offering jobs are definitely looking at Facebook. And I'm not saying you have to be completely professional in your Facebook presence, because people are not. It's a more, here's a picture of my kid or my grandkid, and, this is what I made for dinner. But there is also a role for job searching on Facebook. So I always tell people, don't post anything you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the newspaper. And I get that people have lost jobs over what they've put on Facebook. So just remind your patrons, use it very carefully. I don't care what you did at the Christmas party, but enjoy it. Just don't put it on Facebook. It's not necessary, and you may be very sorry someday.
Yeah, some people say, would you want your grandmother to know about this, or would you want your mother to see this?
Exactly.
Think of that as the level of what you're putting up there. There's plenty of things you do that shouldn't go on there, and that you don't tell your mom. There's things I don't tell my mom about.
And you never will.
And
you never will.
Just think of it that way. It can be personal. LinkedIn, I think, is also totally professional. They don't even offer the kind of stuff that is like what Facebook can do. It is all about jobs and connecting and networking and that kind of thing. And Facebook is like a mixture.
Right. It's a blend.
And, and you can use it and have that be okay. And I do that. Some people do use Facebook strictly professionally. Some people refuse to put anything personal on it at all. They just go, it is just my professional face, and that is all. I do a mixture of mine because, well, I'm a real person. I'm a librarian, and I post all sorts of stuff in there about libraries, the concerns and issues and things I have with them, but I also post pictures of my cats and my ferrets and the dinner I made last night, because I'm a real person and I do these things too. So,
and that won't surprise anybody.
No, exactly. Yeah,
that won't surprise anybody.
Yes.
However, if you do post a picture of a beer party you go to,
see that I don't.
Prepared.
College president pouring beer down some young woman's throat. Lost his job within 24 hours. Yeah, and it was Facebook. He was on his own time. But it doesn't matter. There is still your professional image. It's just like when you work at the Library Commission. I don't care where I go. If I'm not working, it doesn't matter. I still would be representing the Library Commission because people associated me with it. So you don't go get, falling down drunk somewhere. It's, oh, yeah, doesn't she work at the Library Commission? Just something to keep in mind. And, it is true. My mother-in-law was on Facebook. She might still be, but she had several grandchildren whose news she found way too disturbing. She decided, okay, fine, I don't want to know that much about my grandchildren. So, you know, but really, just be smart about it. It's just, and I have one son who completely deactivated his Facebook page, not because he was doing wild and crazy things, but because as he went to 200 job interviews trying to get a job, he was repeatedly asked by the person doing the interviewing to friend them on Facebook. And so he's much better off being able to say, I'm not on Facebook. And he's not.
That's interesting.
It just really decided, first of all, you're not my friend, and second of all, it's none of your business.
Maybe if you hired me, I
might. Then I might be your friend.
That's great. I've never heard of it
before.
He
just said, I'm sorry, I'm meeting this person for half an hour to be a busboy at your restaurant. You want to friend me? I don't get it. So, no, I'm not on Facebook. So, yes, the lines are blurred. Your professional life can spill over to your personal life. And Facebook, there are job connections you can make on Facebook. You might be applying for a place and find that one of your 7,000 very personal friends has worked there before or has a brother who is in HR or whatever. So it can be used, once again, very carefully, but it's an online presence, and even if you delete what you put, it could still be showing up somewhere. So just be careful, whatever you put up there. And so what is your role as the librarian, as the person in the community organization where people are going to come to you for help with finding a job, making themselves more saleable, more visible, more marketable? You do what you always do. Librarians do this all the time. This is not new. You put together a workshop. You get in there and spend some time using these tools. Learn how to use Twitter. Learn how to tweet jobs locally. Learn even if you need volunteers. You would be very surprised. LinkedIn has now added in their in your profile. They've now added a section for people to add their volunteer work, because they're finding that a lot of employers are paying attention to the kind of volunteer work that people do. And when you start listing it, I know I volunteer at a couple of library organizations. I volunteer at a local community arts organization. All of those things look really good. And so if they have 10 applicants and you're the only one who shows ongoing long-term volunteer work, you might be the one that say, hey, this is someone who's really committed. And so all of those things are important. You can do this, set up checklists, set up a time for people to come in and sit down with you in your computer center, and all of you work together on making your particular page more visible, more professional, and I'm telling you, it will pay off. I'm very surprised at how it's worked, and I'm, in a way, I mean, it's no fun getting laid off, but I learned a ton from this. I'm telling you. And it also expanded, it expanded my reach with people. When I look for a job, it's unusual, because of the groups I've joined, it's unusual for me not to have somebody to turn to on my list of networks. There's almost always one person that is affiliated in some way with a job, adjunct, part-time consulting job, and it really can pay off. And so now, do we have any questions?
Yes. Does anybody have any questions out there? If you have questions, comments, your own suggestions for job searching maybe, you can type them into the questions section in your GoToWebinar interface, or if you have a microphone, let me know and we can unmute you and you can ask your questions that way. Nothing came in during the session.
Okay. And there are people there, right?
Yes, there's.
We know you're out there.
You know, when you do a webinar, it's a whole new world. Once again, I've done webinars from my home office, and I'm sitting there all by myself, talking. I have no idea if there's, at least when you're in a room with people, you have some.
I do have one that just popped up here. Someone wants to know, what about Google Plus? Have you done?
Oh yes, I've done Google Plus, and I joined it. I was an early adopter of Google Plus, and my favorite feature is the Hangout feature, because, as I said, I've got 4 kids and they're scattered all over the country, and you can hang out, and it's sort of like Skype and multiple, and we can do that.
Is it like FaceTime? I mean, you actually
it's like FaceTime. You can see people. You can
video.
Yeah, it's video chat, and it's kind of cool. I haven't seen, one thing I've learned that a use for Google Plus is people in academics are using it to create sort of those groups of students who work together. I I have not, I just don't think it has taken off the way Google thought it would.
Yeah, I think I'm in it too. I was one of the first ones to get an invite to it. And I think it's similar to what you're talking about with Twitter in the beginning. People don't know yet what to do
How
with
it's
it.
going to do. Yeah.
When it first came out, it didn't have all the features of other things like Facebook that you could do. And like organizations, until just a couple weeks ago, organizations could not have a Google Plus profile. It was only for individuals.
Yeah.
So at original launch, there was no way to put in a page for your library or to look for a page that was for a company you might want to work for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's still figuring out what it's going to be, and people are figuring out what to do with it. Lots of people are on there and are interacting, and some people are on there and are like me, I'm on there. I don't really use it though, because
I don't either.
I was already in Facebook and had everything working in there, in Facebook and Twitter with the companies and the organizations and the libraries, and for now, my opinion is I don't know why I need another place to do the same thing I was already doing.
It needs to come up with a killer app.
Yes.
It needs to come up with a killer app.
And other people who are in it think it works awesome because it's a better way of communicating with their groups of friends and things, and it's supposedly more secure, better privacy than Facebook.
Right.
I don't know.
They
about
claim.
all that.
I don't. Well, the
once you're online, privacy doesn't exist.
What's
That's
the
my
mobile app like for Google Plus? Because the mobile app for Facebook's not great.
No, I haven't used the Google Plus only because, as Krista said, it doesn't offer me anything that I don't have somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people in circles. I got a book circle. I got a library circle. I got a family circle. But so what? All those people are on Facebook or LinkedIn, and so I'm not sure why I would want to go to somewhere else to do it. And it might change. But, you know, they had the Google, the Wave? They had the Buzz.
Google Buzz, which have both gone away.
Both gone away. And unless this comes up with a really, something that gives you a reason to do this that's not happening somewhere else, I'm not there yet.
Well, if they did a really good mobile app,
it might be.
That might be something that would sell it to
might
people.
be, yeah.
And some people are there and think it is the best thing ever. And they have completely left Facebook, or not deleted their accounts, but do everything on there only.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a personal thing. But, yeah, like I said, only a few weeks ago, within the last couple of weeks, I don't remember the exact date, finally an organization can do a page.
Yeah.
So people are just now figuring out, how do I create a profile on there? What do I do with it? How does it work? So it's still a baby.
It is a baby, and it's funny because Google is so good at just about everything they do, but they can't
Every time they try the social stuff, they can't figure it out.
It's not their main job.
No.
It's like any kind of a business. When you branch off of the thing that you do so well, you better be
very careful.
Mark.
Yeah.
We do have a new question popped in here. Can you talk about dealing with resumes in social media? Should you add your resume to your LinkedIn profile, for example? Well, isn't your profile kind of your resume?
Yeah, it is kind of your resume.
The information you put in there is similar, the same kind of.
It's the same kind of information, and I still have on my LinkedIn page. It shows like my profile is like 95% because it says upload your resume. Well, I have not done it for that very same reason. Everything they need to know is really in there. So I just feel it can be more. You can put it up more carefully rather than just uploading your resume. My resume sometimes, depending on which one I'm using, I have one that's geared toward libraries. I have one that's geared toward education. I have one that includes references. So I've got, my resume is tweaked depending on what I'm applying to, so it's better to keep this more generic.
And I think that's a key lesson for librarians working with customers who are job hunting, is to help them realize that they have a resume, but they have to customize that resume for the particular job. I mean, there's nothing worse than being an employer and getting the resume that says, hunting for a job in education when you're a library.
Exactly.
You know, you're thinking, don't you want a job in a library or education within a library? You know, help them to see they've got to tweak this.
You've got to be very careful.
You have a resume and then you don't have to ever worry about it again. Just slap it out there.
And that's why LinkedIn works. You can put your jobs and the places you worked, but you don't put a lot of detail because that leaves you flexibility when you need. When you're looking for a job, you're open to just about anything.
Yeah, if you look at LinkedIn, you'll see that it actually reminds me of a resume because there is your education history, and you go back and put every single school you were at, your work history, not just your current job, but you can go in and put back in all of your previous ones. So it's practically just like a resume.
Right.
And you said volunteer history.
Everything else, all that kind of extra stuff. They've got sections for all that. So it kind of serves that purpose. When you actually go and apply for the job, then you would say, here's my paper done up resume that I'll hand to you. And
Once
stuff.
you redo it and make sure that the skills that they're looking for are the ones that are at the top, you use the same keywords they've used. So that's why I don't upload one, because my resume, it's like TJ Maxx. It's new every day.
Never the same resume twice.
Never the same resume twice.
Okay, new question. I've been unemployed for several months now. How do you recommend a person account for the recent blank time?
Well, I think in these days it's a little easier to do than it might be any other time. I mean, when I was laid off, I was at first reluctant to even put that my job had ended, because it felt embarrassing, it felt demeaning, it was discouraging. But you know what, like I said, within 24 hours, somebody paid attention to the fact that I was now available. And I think the first thing you have to do is deal with it up front. If you have the opportunity to interact with a potential employer, you want to talk about your long experience and the time and the professional work that you've invested in your career. And due to economic conditions, for me it was the place I was working for went out of business. They closed. Whatever the hook is.
That doesn't reflect badly on you.
No,
not at all. In that particular situation.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's going to have blank time, and there's going to be a reason for it. And for most situations, it's probably not necessarily a horrible reason.
No,
there's various reasons. There's layoffs. There's I left to have a baby. There's
right,
whatever,
and I'm trying to get back. Yeah,
there's one thing you want to do right now, though, is begin to fill that gap with professional volunteer work.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Find, whatever your particular interest is, if it's an academic library, or if you've done all your work in academic libraries, but you want to learn more about public libraries,
volunteer.
Start to fill that gap with professional volunteer work, because there's projects you can work on that would be new and interesting, but also it shows that you're active in the profession, even though you're not employed right now.
Yeah, right. Maybe, like we were saying, get involved in some of those groups on LinkedIn or discussions that are out there on different things, and so that when you do go and say, yes, I have been employed for this much time, but I was reading this post in so-and-so, and I'm interested in this topic, and here's what I've been paying attention to, even though I've not been in an actual job.
You're still reading about your profession, and people on LinkedIn, depending on your group, they will sometimes ask for volunteers to work on a project. Sometimes it's an online project you can help with. I've done that. You can also connect through the volunteer work with people who might eventually have a job for you. So you're growing your connections. If you're volunteering, then look for the people you're interacting with, join with them on LinkedIn, and grow your network.
And I don't know if you're in Nebraska, but if you are, the Nebraska Library Association has a huge number of activities and committees and projects.
Yeah.
Volunteer for one of those right now, because you're going to make contacts, and also it gives you something to kind of fill in the gap in your resume.
Yes, you'll show that you've not walked away from your profession. You are just on a hiatus, and you're looking to make it grow.
Taking a break.
Taking a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck.
Yeah. Someone just have a comment that this is the first they've ever heard of anything about LinkedIn, and I'm very interested in using it. Thanks for sharing your experience with it.
Well, thanks for joining. It's nice to know you're out there.
Is there another question there?
No, not an actual question.
I actually do have a question. You mentioned very briefly that you thought Monster.com was kind of over. Talk about that a little bit, because I had been encouraging librarians to provide links to that and show people.
I guess mostly because in all of my reading, and like I said, I have alerts on different topics, and one of them is job hunting, and one of them is online searching, and I rarely see anybody who writes on that field even mention Monster.com.
Really?
I mean, maybe there are jobs that my kids have found more work through Craigslist.
Craigslist, okay.
Honestly.
Write that down. Replace everything I ever told you about Monster.com with Craigslist.
And once again, Craigslist it's got its things, but they have found jobs through that. In some case, my daughter answered a job. She's a graphic designer, and she works online, meaning she works from home, but in a pre-press and a web-to-print environment. And she answered something on Craigslist, and she was a little concerned about it. They wanted an image drawn, and they sent her a contract, and she agreed to it, and then she sent off her image thinking, I'll probably never get paid. Well, it turned out it was for Dell. And she has had repeat business from them. And she said, their one little job, will pay my rent for 1 month. So things like that.
Isn't that great?
You have to be, yes.
You don't know, though. You don't know who the company you're working with is working with.
Because anybody can post something on there, and they warn you about scams, but be judicious, ask for a contract, do whatever vetting you can. And she did, and she thought, okay, what's the worst? I'm out a couple hours of work, I send my image off. but it didn't work out that way, and they've come back for more. So, and she's done that several times. She's done T-shirt designs for nonprofits in different parts of the country. So you need to be judicious, careful, savvy, but don't be completely paralyzed that you don't explore anything.
And that's another thing, I guess, that we could be encouraging our customers who come into the public computing centers. Encourage them to look for not just permanent jobs with a fabulous pay and a good pension and benefits. Although we want them to find
nice,
them,
yes.
but stopgap kinds of things that they may find in their interest area.
Yes, and part-time jobs might grow to a full-time job, but really don't shut the door on that. That's why I say leave it all pretty vanilla, and then you can tailor things when you start honing in on a particular job. It's not hopeless, believe me. I see people post jobs on some of the groups I'm in repeatedly looking for certain types of instructional designer needed, graphics person's needed. So there's work to be had out there, and some people are only posting their jobs on LinkedIn. Some of these places, that's what they're using because they've developed a connection, a network of colleagues who they rely on. If they can't do it, they'll know someone who can.
Do you have a comment here on the questions that someone who says all the jobs they've applied for on Craigslist that they thought they'd been very careful about were scams. But they said, I think it depends on where you are. Craigslist is good, I hear, in places like San Francisco, but not so much here in Kansas City where this person is. So
yeah, I don't know. My daughter got the job with Dell when she was in Austin, and she's currently in Loveland, Colorado. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think what she was looking for, though, was online work. So maybe, and I have not explored Craigslist a lot. If there's an option for remote or virtual work, that's something she's probably looking at. Often when I go to a job list, I'll search for remote or virtual because if I want to work from my home office, that's what I'm looking for.
Things like this, like Craigslist, that have multiple purposes, where people sell stuff,
yeah.
they hire people,
it's a little more iffy.
It can be more iffy.
Yeah.
Things like LinkedIn, which are focused on job and something specific, are better at that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Twitter,
which
you can
focus on
yourself the way you want to, which is so important, I think, for our customers because they might not be thinking of Twitter in that way at all.
I didn't. I didn't until I wanted job ads brought to me as quickly as possible. And that's when Twitter became meaningful for me. Yeah.
Interesting. It's like anything else. Once you find that use for it that works for you, then all of a sudden
it has to be personal.
Boing, the antenna go up.
It has to be personal. Yeah.
So that's what we want to help our customers do. Find that thing that starts their radar quivering.
Right. Well, and there's my email. If anybody wants to get in touch with me later, you're doing a workshop, you want some help, absolutely. Just send me an email.
And this podcast, this NCompass Live will be available on our website within a couple days, so you can send library customers to this. It probably would be better for your customers if you pulled things from it and helped them with it specifically, since this was so geared towards librarians. But hey, this might be just the thing they can go to it and watch it for an hour, and it helps them get ideas.
Gives them some ideas.
Yeah.
It's a starting point.
We got some awesome info. Thanks for sharing.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for attending.
Anybody have any final questions? We're just about hitting 11 o'clock, and we did start a few minutes late, so that's okay. We can stay as long as anyone has any other questions or comments or anything they want to say. It's like some people are just logging out. Some thank yous.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Well,
and thank you, kids.
Yeah.
This has been
welcome.
fun.
So then, if there's nothing urgent right now, great. As you saw, Kit, you can contact her if you do have any other questions. The session will be posted maybe this afternoon, maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see.
So what are we doing next week?
Next week's session actually will be very interesting, depending on who you are. Best Youth Books of 2011. This is Sally Snyder, who's the coordinator of Children and Young Adult Library Services here at the Library Commission. Sally Snyder every year does her Best Youth Books presentation at Nebraska Library Association Conference. And it's always a huge draw. Her room is always overflowing with people. So we also bring her on to NCompass Live every year now afterwards to redo her session for us so we can have it here and have it recorded. So Sally will be here next Wednesday giving a little brief book talks about new titles for teens and going all the way back to preschool. So
just in time for last-minute shopping.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking last minute.
Yeah, well, I'm there.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't sent my gifts off.
So I hope you'll join us next week for that. Not anything new. Thank you very much, Kit and Mary Jo.
Thanks, Krista.
We will see you next week on NCompass Live.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.